All right, it is 7 o'clock on Tuesday, July 10th. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Rosato?
Here.
Etak?
Here.
Stark? Here. Chanzit?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
Salvati?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
O'Brien?
Here.
Callahan? Meitzler?
Here.
Malay? Ewer?
Here.
Saron? And McFadden?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum to conduct the committee of the whole meeting. Next item is item 2, approval of the minutes for June 5th, June 11th, June 12th, June 25th, and June 26th, 2018 committee of the whole meetings. Anybody have any comments or questions on those minutes? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Stark, second by Ewer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Let the minutes reflect that Alderman Malay just walked in. Item 3 is items removed, added, or changed. I don't know of any. Does anybody have anything? Okay. Item 4, matters from the public for items not on the agenda. Item 5, discussion for small cell wireless legislation and ordinance. Alderman Atek.
Okay. Well, the state has adopted the Small Cell Wireless Facilities Deployment Act, which took effect June 1st, 2018, and gave municipalities 2 months to implement local ordinances complying with the act. And this ordinance is developing the code that will show how we'll comply. And Rahat, are you going to take this one? Yes. Okay.
Yes, he's here. You just can't see him.
I'm actually not going to take more than a few seconds. We have our attorney, Michael Mars. He provided a presentation, or he did a presentation a few months back about small cell facilities. When this became a public act, we were all like, what is this about? So we attended a presentation by him, and then we contracted with him to help us come up with this ordinance. So we invited him to come and explain this whole small cell facilities to you, and then explain why we need this ordinance and why it needs to be adopted before August 1st. That's what the Public Works says. Okay. Without further delay.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening. As Rahat said, my name is Michael Mars. I'm a partner at Kleinthorpe & Jenkins in Chicago, which is a local government firm. And I'm happy to be here and talk to the City Council tonight about what is becoming a hot button issue in Illinois. You may not have heard much about it, but it's to date, but it's going to be something that is going to get a lot of attention in the next couple of years, and that's the placement of these small wireless facilities. And I just want to take a couple minutes and give you guys some context so you understand how this came to be and why we're dealing with this ordinance, and then a couple more minutes on what the ordinance says and what the city's flexibility is in this area. So first of all, what is small cell? You may be familiar, of course you're familiar with the big traditional cell towers, the macro cell towers that cities have been dealing with for a number of years. The small cell installations are a supplement to that started in about 2012. Is the first time I dealt with them. And Rahat's handing out some pictures with examples of what these look like. And so they're nothing crazy, but if they are left unregulated, they can look pretty bad because the carriers will sometimes do what they can just get away with. So it's important that we regulate them. And the reason they're coming to the forefront now is because if you look at your phone, at least on Android phones, and up in the right-hand corner, it says 4G next to your bars. And the providers are getting ready to roll out 5G network starting later this year and then in force next year. And in order to do that, they're not going to build more of the big towers. They're going to do it through installing a bunch of these small wireless facilities on infrastructure around Illinois. And 5G is the telecom providers, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint. They're all very excited about 5G because it's going to provide a lot more bandwidth to everybody. It's going to the current the current systems are kind of pushed to the limit in a lot of places as people bring more and more devices online. So, a few years ago, we just had our flip phones, and then we were texting, and now it's all this data, and increasingly all these things, these smart home type of things. So, we have smart refrigerators and smart washers and dryers, and I was even at somebody's house recently where they had a smart meat thermometer. So they are able to monitor the internal temperature of the meat from their phone because the meat thermometer is in the oven sending a wireless signal. So that's kind of a sign of things to come. And the 5G network will be able to handle all that, as well as even bigger steps like the driverless cars that we're expecting to come online sometime down the line. So the telecom people are very excited about it, and they don't understand why municipalities aren't quite as excited. And part of the reason municipalities aren't quite as excited is the way the telecom industry has decided to go about this. So the telecom industry has pushed, especially at the federal level, for a number of years for less local control over the siting of their wireless facilities. And they've had some success there. But what they decided to do to deal with small wireless, and they're still pushing at the federal level on the small wireless facilities, but they took a different strategy where they rolled out these pieces of legislation in all 50 states that kind of that were drafted by the industry and give them the ability to place these small wireless facilities on municipal infrastructure without a whole lot of say by the municipalities as to where it goes, and the ability to put up new poles in the right of way where they need to without a whole lot of say by municipalities. They want to put them on streetlights. They want to put them on traffic signals. They don't want to pay the amounts that they've traditionally paid for these attachments because, according to them, that would not be a practical economic model because there's going to be so many more of them. Okay? And so they introduced this legislation around the country. The Illinois version was Senate Bill 1451. When it was introduced, municipalities and the IML and people were understandably a little agitated because it does things that the legislature hasn't traditionally done. It impacts our zoning authority. It requires these to be permitted uses in all rights of way and in certain zoning districts. It takes away some of our traditional authority over our own infrastructure and what's placed on there. It even impacts traditional contracts. So municipalities have negotiated in good faith with Verizon and other companies with these master license agreements as to how small wireless facilities are placed up till now. And the legislature and the legislation said, well, once this act is enacted, those aren't any good anymore. You have to comply with the terms of the act. And so municipalities were upset about that. And so a year ago in spring, the version of the bill was defeated narrowly. And so nothing happened. Nothing happened for quite a while over last summer. And then in October, the wireless providers contacted the groups who had been actively opposed to this. So one important thing to know is the IML had negotiated some changes with the telecom industry on the bill. They sat down with them in a room. But we're only able to get so far because these bills were introduced in all 50 states. The telecom industry didn't want to give away a whole lot in one state because then all the rest of the states start pointing at Illinois and saying, we want what they got. So they made some concessions, and IML, the Municipal League, felt they got as far as they could, and they took a neutral position after that because they felt like the wireless industry had negotiated with them in good faith. So that left it up to these individual groups to continue to oppose the legislation, and they were the ones who got it defeated in the spring. It was a loose coalition of DuPage Mayors and Managers Association, Northwest Municipal Conference. The City of Aurora was very active, and importantly, the Chiefs of Police Association were concerned about the public safety technology impacts of this. And so nothing happened until October when the telecom industry contacted these groups and said, we'd like to sit down with you and see if we can work out some improvements to the bill that might make you happier. So at that point, I was able to get involved on behalf of City of Aurora, who we do work with. And over in October, there was about 25 hours of face-to-face negotiations and phone negotiations with the telecom industry representatives on this bill. And we were able to get some improvements. We got some increases in fees. We got some protections for historic districts, a number of other good things. But considering where the legislation started with, it's still a bad deal ultimately for municipalities because of the loss of control over our rights of way regulation, our zoning, and our contract authority. So a number of the people who had been opposed remained opposed even after the bill was revised. But the chiefs of police did feel they'd made significant improvements in the public safety technology aspects of it, and they moved to neutral. And I believe Northwest Municipal Conference moved to neutral. And that movement and the fact that the telecom industry had negotiated with the municipal groups was enough to sway legislators, and it was passed in the veto session in October. It took a while for it to be sent to the governor, so it wasn't actually signed into law until April 2nd. And it was at that point, and no one was sure if the governor was going to sign it. Was he going to mandatorily veto it? Was he going to veto it? So when he did sign it, and it had this effective date of June 1st and the implementation date of August 1st, since then it's been a big scramble to kind of get everything in place. It's a long bill. It's 28 pages. I think it's in your packet. And it's pretty dense. So it's not just a few additions to existing language. It's all basically new language. And so we've sorted through it and come up with a template ordinance that we feel pretty good about. And so it implements the regulations of the Act within the city. And unfortunately, the way the Act is written, there's not a lot of flexibility. You'll see that the ordinance that was drafted really, in many cases, reflects the language in the Act because there's not a lot of wiggle room in most cases. Some of the limits that it places on the city as a municipality, the zoning, which I mentioned, these have to be permitted uses in your rights of way, and also in zoning districts that are exclusively for commercial or industrial uses, which is your service business district, your light industrial district, and your general industrial district. So even on private property in those areas, it is a permitted use. There's timelines for processing these applications, so they're going to be coming in with applications to put these small, AT&T and Verizon and these companies will be coming in either later this year or next year in force to start installing these small wireless attachments. And there's pretty strict time limits about processing these. 90 days for co-locations on poles and 120 days where a new pole is involved. And there's a process where it can be deemed approved if you haven't processed their application in a timely fashion. Application fees are capped. So one of the concerns that municipalities had is these involve structural analysis and things like that, so we want to be able to have an engineering review. You're lucky to have a staff engineer, but some places contract all that work out, and it can be very expensive to have a bunch of these applications sent. But the application fees, we weren't able to get them any higher than they are now, which was a significant improvement over how it was originally proposed. But it's $1,000 application fee if there's a new pole, $650 for a co-location on a single pole that's not new, and then if they bunch them together, they can bundle up to 25 sites in one application. If it's similar equipment and similar types of poles, and that's $350 per placement is the application fee for that. So those are the max allowed under the Act. That's what we built into the ordinance. Annual rates. So when they do attach to infrastructure, we still get to have a pole attachment agreement with them that sets forth some basic parameters as to how the relationship between the wireless provider and the city is going to work. So we will still have that, but instead of what's traditionally been several $100s a month coming to a municipality for one of these installations, the Act caps it at $200 a year. And that's up significantly from their original proposal of $20 a year. So that was somewhat of an improvement. It limits our ability as a municipality to say no to where these go. The providers are playing nice at this point, saying, of course, we're going to work with you as we always have as to where these are going to go. And we'll see how that goes when push comes to shove. But we weren't able to get into there that we can make them take alternative locations, except if they're putting up a new pole, we're able to propose an alternate location within 100 feet if it doesn't compromise the technological need for that small cell at that location. There's specific height limitations built into the Act, and so we don't have a lot of say-so as to how high these are. Now, they're not super high in most cases, but they're reasonably high. They're the higher of 45 feet or 10 feet above the highest pole within 300 feet, highest utility pole currently. But again, they're probably going to want to, their preference is going to be to put them on the existing poles because that's the easiest. If they do need a new pole, they have to pay for that new pole. And so their preference is going to be to try to put them on the existing poles if they can. The things that we can do under the Act, we can, there's a permitting process. We can, we've given the city a template application form, which they're going to modify specifically for these small wireless facilities. It has a checklist of all the information they need to give us, and including structural analysis from an engineer and things like that, so that we know that the location is going to work. And the big area where we have flexibility is design standards and stealth and concealment. We are able to impose some reasonable design standards and stealth and concealment measures on the providers so that these things don't create an unpleasant aesthetic within the city. So we've also given the city some template design standards, which staff is going to be working with, and they'll bring those back to you for final approval. But those will be something that you'll give to the providers when they come in with these applications and kind of dictate how we want these to look. So, for instance, I know you have these ornamental poles in your downtown, and we want them, if they're going to go on those poles, we want them to look a certain way that's not going to be out of place in that downtown district. And we do have some flexibility to do that. We can't say, no, they can't go on those poles if those poles are able to support them, but we can make them look decent. Special protections for historic landmarks and districts can also be built into these design standards, and we're working on that. And like I said, we'll also have a pole attachment agreement with the providers. It's going to be a master agreement with each provider, and then as site-specific permits are approved, it'll just be a single page attached to the back of each of those, so it's not constantly coming back to the board with these new locations. All right, so that's kind of the lay of the land on what these are, and again, the ordinance kind of implements what the Act says in a way that's customized to the city, and as we work with the design standards and the application and everything, we'll kind of flesh out the process for the city in a way that hopefully manages this effectively going forward. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Yeah, several actually. If I'm reading correctly in the ordinance as drafted, 765-L-3 states that, hold on, I just lost it. They won't need to get a application permit or fee if they're doing something where they hang them between two poles on a wire, basically, as long as it meets our ordinance. So basically they can just come in and put them wherever they want, is the way I'm reading that. Is that true?
You said 765
L3.
L3. Right, so my understanding of that is that you'll notice the word micro wireless facilities on that. My understanding of that is the cable industry asked for that to be inserted in the act, and it has something to do not with the telecommunications providers, but with something that Comcast and these other cable companies are doing. So to my knowledge, none of the wireless providers have anything that's able to be put on wires. It's these little boxes that the cable company wants to do. Do you know something about that?
Yeah, I'm Gary Holm, which we didn't get a chance to meet before the meeting.
Hi, Gary.
If you just drive around today, you're already going to see Comcast installations of these small little boxes. In fact, there are several in town right now which are not permitted, but that's a separate issue we'll deal with. but these are out there today, and they are little tiny boxes. They're not really kind of in the context of small wireless.
Okay.
So that's that issue. Second thing is the ordinance before you tonight, I just wanted to cover the fact that it's still in revision stages. We got a really good draft to get to you, but probably in the next week we'll finalize the draft, and then at the time you approve it next week at City Council, it'll be a final draft. But we're working through the section you just asked about. I believe comments on right now, so we're working on that right now.
Let's see if you've commented on my other sections. 768C appears as though they can actually be any height through the waiver process if they can prove, and I don't know how we're going to deny them, if they can prove that it needs to be higher, they can go higher than the 45 feet. Is there a way we can limit that at all? I mean,
Well, so there's the height limitation in B, and then there's this waiver process in C. And the nice thing about a waiver process is, to the extent that you find that they are not really being fully truthful in the fact that they need it higher. And I'm not great on the technology aspects of this, but my understanding is they don't need these particularly high in most cases. So the waiver process does give you the ability to deny them. Unlike a lot of things in the Act, wherever we see the waiver process, that implies that we can deny in cases. And so if they ask for something ridiculous, if they say, well, we want 110 feet in front of that residence over there, I think we have ample reason to say no.
okay. I guess one more thing, because you talked about the aesthetics, and I'm assuming you guys are working on that, is so undergrounding doesn't get us out of it, is what I read too, that they can just put up a pole anywhere.
Right, so the undergrounding for this technology is, to my understanding, not available or effective at this point. It may be in the future. But right, so if we have undergrounding requirements, again, they can ask for that waiver, and if it's not going to work underground, it's not going to work underground.
No, I guess what I meant is if we buried everything, we can't avoid it. They can just put a pole
Correct.
anywhere they want.
Although we still have the out where if there's some place to locate it within 100 feet from there, we can ask them to put it there instead.
Okay.
Dan?
I have a question regarding saturation. Does our town need 5 of these things, or do we need like 100 of these things? Because there's some neighborhoods, like my mom's neighborhood, there are no poles anywhere.
Right.
Like anywhere, which means they're going to have to install poles.
My understanding is they're going to want these, each provider is going to want them every 200 to 300 feet.
Oh, okay.
So there are going to be quite a number. The T-Mobile and Sprint merger would be nice because we'd have 3 companies instead of 4 doing this. But there are going to be quite a number of them. And it's one of those things, I mean, we notice them now, but like electric poles and things, probably 5 years from now, our eyes may be more used to them. And,
They look like fire hydrants. I didn't notice.
yeah.
Okay.
If a town has more traditional cell towers, do these interact with the traditional cell towers that we already have? Or is it, I don't completely understand, is it a different technology?
They still need the existing cell towers, to my understanding, to provide that base level of coverage, and then this will be supplementary to that.
Is there any way, if you have more of these cell towers installed, that you won't need as many of the 5G small cells?
That's a fair question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, are there either the electromagnetic waves or radiation, the similar between the two of them? I mean, we've had discussions about cell towers in certain places around the community, and there's been some concern among some people about radiation close to residences. Is this going to be different or the same?
I don't know the exact.
Yeah, I won't speak to electromagnetic radiation. That is a. If Alderman Volk here was here still, he would speak strongly to that issue. He would tell you that it's a non-issue. But
Well, I've heard that, and I believe that, though people are asking that question. So are they the same or are they different?
That has persisted forever. Those questions will be asked. Anyways, the large cell towers and the small cell wireless are all part of an integrated network. Okay, large towers. If none of us watched YouTube videos or were on Instagram, we can get by with the large towers forever. But because we're all now, and I was just having this conversation with my wife this evening at dinner. Think about 10 years ago how much data you used. You had your Motorola flip phone and you maybe sent a text once a day. Nowadays we send 500 texts, we're on Instagram, we're looking at YouTube, we're doing our Vines and Snapchats, and just non-stop data and driving autonomous vehicles. So data has skyrocketed. These large towers just don't have the capacity to handle that. And the industry has chosen to install these small towers as opposed to trying to locate larger towers.
So they could have located many more large towers.
They could have located many more large towers, but I don't know how practical that is because they're very difficult to locate. They're very expensive to locate. And they've convinced the government that if they do small cell, they can come onto our infrastructure for basically almost no cost. So, I mean, that's kind of the route that they chose to do. They're basically the same thing. This will still communicate with a small cell wireless. That small cell wireless either communicates to the big tower or back a fiber link back, and a backhaul, what they call it, back to some other central control spot. And I speak on all this like I'm some expert. We all literally just sat.
It sounds good.
We just.
We all literally, Scott and I and Rahat and Laura, all just sat in a webinar today to learn about all this. So you could ask all four of us and we'd all give you the exact same response.
We can parrot the words that we heard earlier
Exactly.
today.
And in terms of radio frequency, I know that's a persistent concern among residents and councils and everybody else, but the telecom industry has kind of taken that out of play by getting federal regulations passed that say, so long as these installations, any installations, big macro cell towers or whatever, meet FCC radio frequency emission standards, that the municipalities can't do much about it. We don't have any enforcement power over that.
Thank you. Anything else? Elliot?
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback on that, so to be clear, this act looks to stand on top of the municipality's existing infrastructure, but actually contribute significantly less towards the upkeep, if not installation, of that infrastructure?
Yes. That's a fair assessment.
Although,
to the extent, so let's say that you have an existing light pole and it, for whatever reason, it's older and not structurally able to support this, and they say, well, we want to go there, they have to put up a new pole, pay for a new pole for you, which is nice. So theoretically,
so we should let our infrastructure. Just, okay.
The same pole. They have to put the same pole.
So then, I mean, the other.
Yeah. Your design standards should say, if you're putting up a new pole, it's got to look like the ones we want.
So then the other question that I had, and I mean, just doing basic searching about, small cell, it seems like two of the big complaints are what's proposed to be put into place does not match what actually ends up being put in place. And then once you actually see the thing put in place, there's a lot of liberty that the big telecoms take to add on to it.
Okay.
What kind of teeth do local municipalities really have against that change of the infrastructure?
Right. So the act didn't, not surprisingly, didn't have much teeth in that respect, but what we did at KTJ was add this revocation of permit section at 7620 where we we said, well, just like any building permit that we issue, if people were untruthful with us, if they're not maintaining it in the way they should, if there's issues, we should be able to enforce that. And so we think that this is a reasonable addition, and we'll give it some teeth so that we have something to say, hey, you guys didn't put up what you said you would. Hey, it's not, you've expanded it without permission or done this or done that. And so bring it into line or we're going to revoke your permit.
And I did see that section. I guess what I was looking for more was the process of that, because I saw that it was actually, where does it say? Written notification shall be sent. They have 14 days to respond, if you will.
Right.
But then it is actually something that the city council would end up hearing the appeal against that revocation. And so, I mean, obviously, if we were the ones who said, this is no longer in place, they can appeal it, but then it comes back to us. So I would imagine we would most likely uphold our appeal. So then where does it go?
Circuit court. If they had a continuing issue with it, they would take it to King County Court.
Lovely.
And none of this ordinance is court tested anyways, because no one's had a chance to.
Correct. Yeah. So that's one of the interesting things about all this is, it's all these words on a page and months of talking and everything else, but we don't know in reality how it's all going to work once it's happening. So I think that there'll be an evolutionary process where we see what works, what doesn't, what needs to be tweaked. The act does have a sunset date 3 years from now, and I think the idea was that everyone will kind of revisit things at that point and maybe make some revisions to the act to address some issues that have happened.
We also put some language in there regarding if the statute is revoked, that, we can change things also.
Right.
If it's considered unconstitutional.
So there have been challenges to these pieces of legislation in other states. In Ohio in particular, they tacked it onto a pet adoption bill, which the court found was a no-go, so that was struck down. So there's always the possibility that someone will bring a declaratory action and this will get frozen or overturned.
Lucy.
Dave?
Gary, question. Every one of these units then is going to need power, right?
That's correct.
So wherever they're located, they would have to then put a meter socket in a meter, and would they then have to pay a hookup fee also? And
So that's yes, and yes. And as part of upcoming rate looking at our ordinance, we'll probably classify or establish a separate classification. It's such a unique use, it would seem to fall on its own rate classification.
yeah. So then in an area like Dan was talking about where there are absolutely no poles, if they were to locate poles, they'd have to run underground over to the pole, and from an underground facility, right, over to the pole. They couldn't run, if there's no poles, like in the newer subdivisions, everything's underground. They'd have to run underground over to the pole, up the pole, put a meter socket there, and
That's correct.
And there will be some street light in those subdivisions, they can literally go into the street.
yeah, that's true.
Okay, no streetlights. And if the streetlight's not big enough, they'll have.
And that, another question, somebody hits a street light and it's on the street light, and it falls, the street light and their unit falls, and their unit goes through a car window and kills somebody, and it's on our pole.
It's no different today than Comcast or
Okay.
AT&T Wire, same scenario. Those companies carry the insurance, and so the insurance carriers, in that scenario where somebody were to be killed, everyone will get sued.
I mean, I think myself personally, I mean, this is, we're growing, we're advancing in the world of technology. It's one of the necessary things to make that next step that technology is telling us we need to make. So I think it's good that we're ahead of the program here in creating these ordinances to try to regulate it the best we can. But I don't look at it as it's a bad thing. Not at all.
Do you have a smart home?
A what?
Do you have a smart home?
A smart home?
They're kind of cool.
I don't have one,
I just
no.
hooked up my thermostat to one.
Did you?
They're fun. So I'm partly to blame for why we need these things. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Any other questions? Do you have anything else?
Nope.
Well,
do not.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve ordinance 18-51, an ordinance amending Title 7 Public Ways and Property of the Batavia Municipal Code to add a new Chapter 6, Small Wireless Facilities relative to permitting, regulation, and deployment of small wireless facilities?
If I may add, so as Gary said, we are going to be making some small revisions to this because we looked at the ordinance only on Friday, so we didn't have chance to walk through all those revisions. I'll be doing that with Michael in next couple of days or so and post the final version for you on Friday. But we don't see any major changes. It will be some comments from the staff, and those are the changes we'll make.
Okay, subject to changes staff makes.
Right.
Yes, Mayor.
Yesterday at the Mayor's Caucus meeting, we discussed this briefly, and one of the questions that came up, and I think it deserves an answer for us, is there going to be a door on this ordinance that allows us, if somebody else shows up on the doorstep and says, we're the next provider that wants to come into your community, this doesn't in any way prevent them from coming in?
No.
No.
Because as it was pointed out, we all started off with one cable carrier in the region, then suddenly we have two, then now we have three, and nobody seems to know where all this technology thing is going. But the best bet is there's going to be others out there that are going to want to wander in here, and it's interesting how this group seems to choose where they want to go, and we seem to be in one of the targeted areas. We had some other cities sitting there that are in very much of a problematic situation, and they didn't seem to know anything about any of these folks because nobody was down knocking on their doorstep. So I just want to reiterate here that I think we shouldn't airtight ourselves into some ordinance where it only allows one operation to expand themselves in. That, if you're in here, you're welcome to come, but be advised the door's open and others may follow.
If I may, I think one of the things that we've never learned our lesson from is when we first put up cell towers. When we first started doing this, there were all these different cellular companies that put up their own independent network. And it wasn't until later on that they started co-locating these and saying, oh yeah, it costs us $1 million to put this up. Maybe it's cheaper if we put an antenna on, AT&T's tower. Unfortunately, we never unified our network. So each one of these companies had a separate network. The same thing is happening with this type of technology. Every one of these companies is going to come in and have their own separate network of these individual small cells, and we're going to be back in that same situation. So, while one company may say they only need it every 200 feet, guess what? Sprint may come back and say, we also need it every 200 feet, so that puts it every 100 feet, depending on, how their network is laid out. So we're going to be stuck with that same situation over and over again with these different companies.
All right.
I just think we need to keep the door as wide open as we can because.
Okay, my understanding is it is a wide open, the ordinance is wide open.
Yes.
Yeah, so anyone can come in.
Sure, anyone who meets the definition of a wireless provider under the act is allowed to come in.
Okay. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, that goes to the city council.
And again, it's subject to final revisions.
Right. Next item is item 7, resolution 18-77-R, approving a grant of easement with Mark and Christine Jonas for drainage purposes for the improvement of their property located at 678 North Batavia Avenue. Alderman Wolf.
Okay, this is the property, is this the last lot on?
Yes.
Going up the new house? Okay. And it's a drainage easement down each side of the property?
Right,
It's
it's 5 feet on
each
both
side?
sides and 10 feet on the front and the back.
Did we already have an easement out in front for a water main? Did I see that was already recorded like in 53 last year, or last century? So does anybody have any questions? Do we have similar easements on other properties along 31 that go back down towards the river or towards the bike path?
There's a couple of lots in that area that are in actual subdivisions, so I haven't looked at them, but presumably we have easements in those lots.
Because I know we've talked over time about somewhere along that area from Houston Street North to try to find a way to get bike path connection up to that, and that was one of the things, I don't think it would happen here, but I think we should look for that if there's a place where we have an easement that we could possibly use for that.
To cut over to 31, you mean? Or?
To get up to the sidewalk or get up to 31.
Right.
There's no sidewalk.
No sidewalk.
Right.
East side right now, right?
There could be. But this would just be for
Utilities.
utilities, okay. Is there any more land north of this?
No,
That's that's forest preserve from there on out.
Yeah.
there are 2 other lots that are for sale in that area right now, so
But that's south
they're
of there,
south of this.
not north of it, okay. Any other questions? Somebody care to make a motion?
Second.
Motion by Jansen, second by Salvati. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you want to put that on consent agenda?
Sure.
Pretty simple.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8, discussion on the realignment of the bike path at the wastewater treatment plant. Alderman Wolf.
Okay, everybody's favorite topic.
It's a perennial favorite.
Yeah.
Trying to pull up the picture.
Are you gonna pull that up on the screen up there?
I was trying
They're
to.
moving slow.
Just like me.
It's a big file, unfortunately.
We need 5G.
Too soon. Wait.
This one should be hardwired, actually. I can start with a summary, and if those of you who have the photo in front of you can reference it. There we go. Picture's always easier. Can I zoom out? It's okay. This will be good enough. Today, as pedestrians cross over, there we go. Today, as pedestrians cross over the bridge and they're heading westbound, they encounter basically a small brick plaza, which today has a depressed curb. And as this aerial photo shows, conveniently, it shows the old layout, which was the path actually extending where my pointer was. So along the north side of what was our old building. As Alderman Wolf indicated, we had several discussions regarding this topic a few months back. And with the expansion of the building, and those of you who have been down there now can see the size of the new building, and with parking in front, hopefully it's become apparent why this path is no longer there, because this path now is basically almost all of it had become new building. So the proposed path falls between the food pantry and our new building, and the proposed path comes out onto Flynn Street. And again, we had several discussions regarding the use of Flynn Street for this connection in order for bicyclists to head back over and connect up with the path to head northbound. So the long-term plan is to go around the riverside of the treatment plant. We were notified that we do not have funding for that as part of the latest funding cycle, but we certainly will reapply the next time that comes up, and Rahat may have to help me, but I'm not sure if that's not till 2019, the next time that funding cycle comes through again. So we can continue to try and pursue funding for the path along the river. In the meantime, this connection to Flynn Street is what council had decided that we were going to do. And one day, it is presumed that the property, which is the former foundry site, will redevelop. And when that redevelops, again, presumably they're going to have to accommodate for parking. Some of their concepts had called for this area actually to be a parking garage to try and separate their residential development from the treatment plant. They're going to have to accommodate parking. They're going to have to accommodate basically re-layout of the road, however that works with their site design. So the theory was to somehow incorporate this regional path then onto that property, or hopefully by then, we'll even have it around the treatment plant. We won't have to worry about it. But if it does end up on this property to the north of the parking that we're constructing, so we're constructing this angled parking here on Flynn Street. If it does end up on this property, we would likely put it, as I've kind of drawn with the red lines, north of the angled parking, and then it would exit into Shumway Street at the three-way stop. So it actually makes a logical crossing point right at the stop sign for Shumway. So really, the question that we wanted to bring before you tonight is we're at the stage of re-putting in curb and gutter here at Flynn and Shumway. The reality is that we're talking about moving a depressed curb. It's not a really expensive item, but if we can avoid the appearance of doing something once and then tearing it out a couple of years later and having to do it again, we'd like to do that. If the decision's made to put the depression right back in where it is today, that's fine. Because again, even if we have to move it in the future, this isn't a huge expensive item. But we're just trying to, if we can plan for the future, let's try and plan for the future is kind of our approach to this. So our thought was to eliminate this depression here, which is where the bike bridge is, and move the depression further to the north, which is where the future crossing is going to be, and also becomes a logical place in the interim for bicyclists to cross because it's again in the three-way stop intersection. Having bicyclists enter here on South Shumway really now dumps them off into the side of our building. There's really no place for them to go to. One thing in order to give that turn, because people are humans are creatures of habit. It would be to put up a little railing along here, a little decorative fence or a little decorative railing, to basically force that turn. Have them come over that bridge and force them to be heading northbound. And then that railing actually and the curb, everything could remain in place if this extension around the river is ever installed. That all could just remain right in place. Or if this is ever installed on the Shumway property, that could still remain in place. Yes.
I understand the concept of the railing, but having been on that and entering off of it and entering into it, sometimes bikes come ripping up, that bridge there.
Yep.
And there's pedestrians that are turning to walk into it, and there gets to be this.
So that's a concern.
Dance.
Yeah, that's a concern of the park districts as well, and it was brought up to us in the last week, and we fully agree that if we do this, if we even incorporate this concept, this plaza area that I referenced with the brick would have to be made bigger.
Yeah.
Because it's not anticipated today to be a space where people are turning. It's anticipated to be a space where people just pass through.
Right.
So that plaza needs to be made bigger in order to accommodate the turning movements. And frankly, again, it's a retraining of people. People do fly off those bridges, but if they have a visual barrier in front of them that they can see, and there's nothing hiding that. I mean, when you've driven those bridges, you'll be able to see that barrier from 100 feet away. And when you have a visual barrier in front of you, you're just naturally going to slow down. Yeah. And if you make the plaza big enough to be able to physically make the turn, it should work.
We're going to have a fence across the driveway. And
yeah, we're going to have a gate across right here. Yep.
Would that railing match that fence or be similar to that so that it would tie in at the south end of it? It would physically tie into that fence there?
I would prefer if the railing was more decorative. I mean, our fence is going to be industrial. Our fence is going to be chain link.
Okay.
So I'd rather the railing be more, maybe black wrought iron type.
Because that was my other thing, is if that tees and, comes to the end of it there, then nobody's trying to sneak around that or get into the gate or anything else.
Yeah, they'll connect together.
Corner.
They'll connect together, or they'll prevent what you're trying to prevent. But I'd rather not run like chain link up the side of that sidewalk.
Fine. I didn't know what we were using for the gate on that.
Yeah.
And actually, while we're thinking about it and having that fence there, is there an opportunity to put some wayfinding there in terms of, because, as you have, this, and we have a jog to the left to go up, by the food pantry, and then we have, go to the right if you want to continue on, on the bike path. It might be a logical place to be able to put something.
Seemed to me if you have railing posts, that you just make one post 8 feet tall instead of 4 feet tall, and you put a sign on. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
6 restaurants to the right.
Again, I want to stress what I stressed to begin with. We're really just asking to be able to move this depressed curb further to the north. So if right now we're not fully fully kind of want to consider this concept now, we can just proceed with how we're going to proceed. But we just tried to think ahead a little bit, and if we can maybe try this out, we think it may work better.
Gary, I mean, that future bike path to the north there is future. We don't know when that would happen, right?
We do not, exactly.
So, I mean, I'm no real avid bicyclist, but as we said, people take the point of least resistance, just like water. So even if you put that fence there and it stops right about where your red X is at, aren't they then going to try to just jump the curb and go down Flynn Street over to the bike path? Wouldn't it maybe, should we look at, leaving the press curb there or moving it a little bit further north and then designating a bike lane on Flynn Street going up to the bike path and mark the street?
We are going to be marking or signing the street as share the road. There's not physical room out there for a dedicated bike lane. You are correct that if I'm riding my mountain bike, I'll be able to hop off the curb. There's no doubt about that. Me and my road bike, I would never try and go off the curb because I'd end up flat on the ground.
And you have angled parking slated in there too. You don't want to put a bike trail or a
Behind it.
yeah right behind that.
Right. Well, and that was the concern about the trail here. And the Bike Commission just last night met and discussed this. And again, they raised all these issues related to Flynn Street, which were the same issues we discussed several months ago. They would still prefer that the regional path be extended on the south side, but we kind of went through those several months ago, and we have parking here on the south side. That would put the bike path right in conflict with our own parking of our own vehicles and the garage doors, which are going to be right here. So that's why it was decided, the big picture being that the volume of traffic on Flynn Street is very minimal, especially given the fact that if you're headed northbound, you are going to go from Flynn to Shumway, then to Island Avenue, and by the time you get to Island Avenue, you're dealing with literally probably 100 times the volume that you are on Flynn. So I understand the concern about traffic on Flynn, but it's really kind of a non-concern when you're looking at the bigger picture of your path.
Well, and the high volume times are when really nobody's there.
Food pantry.
Yeah, either the food pantry when that's being used, or weekends, there's nobody at the plant.
Right. So yeah, our request is whether you would like us to kind of try and implement this concept. And Trotter's aware of this discussion tonight, Park District, Bike Commission, tried to touch base with everyone before tonight's meeting.
I think it's a good idea to have that. I wouldn't be opposed to running it all the way across the intersection until you get to the north end, and that way you go to where you're supposed to go across the road.
We can do that, the railing, yeah.
So the city would absorb the cost of the railing. The Park District, would they absorb the cost of making that turning radius a little bit larger then, or is that on the city?
I think this is all on us, yeah.
And what about if they're going to put if there's going to be some signage, more directional signage that will go right on the fence, would that be?
We could just do that. That'd be in-house.
Or,
really
that might be a time to bring Main Street and the wayfinding stuff back into the mix here.
Exactly.
Yep.
They're really wanting to put signs up. That would be a great place for them.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll pay for the fence.
This all started as a question of where do we locate the swipe card for the gate for the treatment plant. I don't need to get into that discussion tonight, but that's how this all started. So everyone's on board with what we're talking about.
We don't have wireless for that? Okay. So are we done with that one then?
I think I understand the direction if everyone's comfortable with it.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to say on it?
Okay, item 9, resolution 18-84-R, authorizing execution of a contract for the 2018 College and Wilson Street storm sewer improvements with Copenhagen Construction in the amount not to exceed $554,567.32. Alderman Wolf.
Okay, this is for stormwater improvements on the east side over at College and Wilson Street. And again, Copenhagen Construction came through with the lowest bid on this. I think they're really interested in trying to get things done in town while they've got all their equipment here. So good to see that we're coming at that.
Yeah, thank you. And as you can see, we bid the project as with an alternate. The base bid had the Forest Avenue and Cleveland Avenue in there because we knew from our cost estimate that it would be probably a stretch to get the entire thing done. So we put the College Street section in the alternate. We had budgeted $640,000 to do only the Forest and Cleveland. The bid came out for those two sections as $504,000. And the bid for the Forest plus Cleveland plus the alternate, which is the College Street, came out to be $842,000. So we discussed this project after we opened the bid because our budget is only 640. We took the approach that we'll just do the two, Forest and Cleveland, see how that performs. Maybe we don't need to do the College Street. If we do, then in next few years we'll budget that amount and then rebid that portion of project in future years. So we are recommending to do only the base bid, which is the blocks of Forest Avenue and Cleveland Avenue through this project.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Okay, anybody care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second.
Stuck in my
On
thumb.
1884-R. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. I think we'll talk about it because it's going to tear street.
Yep. Item 10, Resolution 18-85-R, authorizing execution of a task order number 19 for construction engineering services with WBK Engineering, LLC, in the amount not to exceed $31,164.
Okay, this is the engineering for said stormwater improvements. Any questions? Do you want to explain anything else on this? or-
Yeah, so we followed the same process that we follow for hiring construction engineer who will inspect the construction on behalf of the city. We request qualifications from our shortlisted consultant. We look at their resumes and their experience. We score them, then we open the cost, then we divide the cost with their qualification. We try to find the lowest cost or best qualified consultant with the lowest cost. In this case, as you see, the WBK didn't score as the top, but they scored as the third based on their qualification, but their cost proposal was the best. So based on those two numbers, they came out to be the best consultant out there for us, to be best qualified consultant for the cost. So we are recommending WBK to observe the phase 3. Pretty much Copenhagen, the group that are working on area 3 are going to move to this area, and the construction engineer who is overseeing the phase 3 for area 3 is going to move over there too. So it's the same team will be working at the same time.
Okay, if no questions, somebody care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Resolution 1885-R. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. That we can put on consent.
Yep. All right, item 11, Resolution 18-80-R, authorizing execution of a contract with SKC Construction for the 2018 crack filling program in the amount not to exceed $120,997.25. Alderman Wolf.
I want to know how we can spend that last $2.25. We budgeted $130,000 this year for crack filling. This is to effectively push out repairing streets to be able to make them last a little longer. The two bids you saw there, bids were open on June 14th, and we are finally getting around to approving this. Anybody have any questions, comments? Mark?
Why do we do Batavia Avenue? Why doesn't the state do that?
Because we maintain the Batavia Avenue. State just do the major resurfacing or major reconstruction, but we do get money from state to maintain snowplow and all that. So maintenance as crack fill patching and all that stuff. So Batavia Avenue was resurfaced, and I know that a couple of you are in street business or road construction. It's really good idea to go and proactively maintain it before it falls off. We are already seeing some cracking on Batavia Avenue, so we want to crack fill it and make sure that water doesn't get in there and propagate more cracking in future years. So that's why we included Batavia Avenue and both 25 or Washington Avenue in this program.
Okay. Any other questions? Care to make a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Want to talk about it just a little bit? So
Yeah, that way we get
Spending
people
money on
saying
maintenance.
that we're doing some maintenance on it to try to take care of what we got.
All right, item 12, resolution. Thank you. Item 12, resolution 18-83-R, approving of the plumbing inspection contract with First Inspection Services Incorporated. And that is Alderman Stark.
Got it. So Craft Plumbing was always our inspection service, or has been for quite a while. And they have gone out of business. Now the company is called FIS, which was a branch of Craft Plumbing. Now they're an independent company, and they also do plan review and inspection activities. The rates had always remained the same, but now they're asking for an increase and a restructuring of some of the fees that are being charged. And in addition, the original contract had a one-year term, and this was not enforced, and FIS continued to provide their services despite this contract provision. We took out the one-year clause from the revised contract, and both parties have a 30-day out clause that allows them to terminate the contract after 30 days' notice. Most of the other parts of the contract remain the same as the 2013 contract. So it will increase the inspection fee from $55 to $60, increase the re-inspection fee from $55 to $60, add a new fee of same-day inspections for $85, add a new fee of premium inspections for larger commercial buildings of $85, restructure the plan review fees to reflect higher fee for larger, more complex buildings, increase in re-inspection fee from $55 to $60, which is on there twice in the major fee changes. It's the second one and also the last one.
Just emphasizing that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Staff has been very satisfied with the work they've provided, and we've had very few complaints about their services or fees. And this fees increase will cause a very small increase in the permit fees charged to the applicants. Since the city fee schedule imposes a $30 fee in addition to the actual cost charged to the city, staff recommends this approval and approves a new contract for First Inspection Services. So, of course, the pros, we're just going to continue on service with them. The cons would be not approving the contract will necessitate the city procuring another plumbing contractor. The budget impact, there's no negative impact as this is a pass-through fee. And we're going to continue to collect the additional fee per inspection to cover the administrative costs. There's no impact. FIS has their own staff to do the required tasks. This new fee schedule will be implemented by August 1st if we approve this. So, does anyone have any questions? Alan?
How well does this process work with them? I mean,
Exceedingly well.
It works really well, and we
Absolutely.
can turn them around quick, and people have the opportunity to say, hey, I'll pay more, I want it done today.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been
Is that-
very cooperative, very helpful. They've been very fair on the inspections. They've been fair on the plan reviews. So we really don't get any complaints about it. So,
Because I want to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to make that part of your department work as well as it can.
right. Yeah, and we don't have a plumbing licensed plumber on staff like St. Charles does, where they use that. And so, for our purposes, and Geneva uses them as well. It's been a very good relationship, I think. So.
Elliot?
Are we keeping up with the load that is coming in for plumbing
So far,
inspection?
yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have one main guy, but they have others that they have on their staff that they use also if
Okay.
they have to. So, and again, because Kraft has gone out of business now, they've retired. This is like their new business essentially.
Mike?
Now, they're licensed plumbers, are they still plumbing?
No, not anymore. That Kraft is no longer.
Craft is out, but anyone doing the inspection, are they still plumbing?
Not to my knowledge. They have to separate that's part of why they created this company, is to separate that out, and the state really requires that. So, I'm not aware of them doing any plumbing, but, they're separating everything with this business from that.
I mean, it's just to keep it clean.
Correct. Yeah, and that's a conflict of interest issue that we would be concerned about, obviously.
Right.
That we don't want somebody doing plumbing work and then they do their own inspections. Obviously, that's a huge conflict, so.
Anyone else? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to recommend a council resolution 18-83-R approval of plumbing inspector contract?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Meitzler, second by Rosado. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Consent. All right, item 13, discussion on the land cash ordinance 3-year review. Alderman Stark.
Sounds good. This is something that comes up regularly, obviously every 3 years. So the most recent land cash ordinance was established in mid-2015 by Ordinance 1505. The ordinance set a per acre improved land value at $125,000 per acre. The ordinance also set a required review of these values every 3 years starting in 2018. So this is the required review of the land values per the ordinance. And staff has done a quick review of improved land sales since the last review. While the staff at the time showed the average land value of $260,000, the current review shows that the land has been reduced to $199,000 based on 14 vacant land sale transactions. Because values are dependent on actual land sales prices that have occurred, the average value can be influenced by sales that are substantially higher or lower than other sales. That said, the current sales range from a low of $20,000 for a 1.5 acre lot, and that could be a non-buildable lot, to a high of $275,000 for a 1.4 acre lot. Per acre values range from a low of $13,333 per acre to a high of $394,230 per acre. So our ordinance requires the city review the land values and determine if we wish to change the land cash values. At this time, staff doesn't feel that there's any compelling reason to change the per acre value. And so St. Charles is at 185, Geneva's at 185, St. Charles is at $240,500 per acre. And we feel that our current fee keeps our housing prices competitive. If we need to increase fees, the city-related fees should be considered next for an increase at some point in time. So our alternatives are to do nothing and leave the land value as per ordinance, or direct staff to draft an ordinance raising or lowering the land cash per acre value, or direct staff to take another action on the land cash per acre value. So staff recommends that we do nothing, and I would agree with that, but does any of it, Scott?
For the park district in the schools, how is that portion of their, how is that determined?
That's based on the same per acre basis. So, the school district is based on how many children are generated, and the park district is based on citizens that are generated. So if we don't do anything, they'll still get the same amount that they get based on the number of housing units that are generated.
So does given that the school kind of fluctuates, that does not fluctuate their portion?
No, it's only based on building permits. Okay. So it's, if you build a townhouse unit that has 2 bedrooms, you get X amount. If you build a single family with 4 bedrooms, you get Y amount. So right. That does not fluctuate in itself.
Okay.
Dan?
So I remember talking about this back in 2015, and at the time I remember generally opposing setting the number so low. I did think it was a defensive move. I recognize that. But I remember the mayor speaking pretty passionately about not letting too many houses go up without enough contributions being made to the school district and made to the park district. I think the mayor said the city has done a really good job of trying to pass some of those costs on to developers as they come here. So yeah, it was a defensive move. I just feel like 2015 was a different time. I feel like the economy is improving itself, and there are clearly people knocking on our doors and they would like to build here. Our low fees are substantially lower than our neighbors, and I guess I would ask the mayor, do you agree that we should not be reviewing these fees?
I don't know, I'm kind of betwixt and between here. We're not hearing anything, nobody from the school districts talked to me about it. I have not had any conversations. They normally in the past have been the loudest voice in the room when it came time to talk about this, and I haven't heard anything from them really. I mean, there's some interesting dynamics going on, because there's a very large population of children in this town now who are attending parochial school. It's a big number. We got probably 4 different places that are taking some kids. There's one that's getting, I think, over 400. It's going to parochial school. So the Batavia School District has got, I don't want to use the word competition, but they've got other people in town educating children, and obviously the parents of those children are paying taxes. So it's kind of a mixed bag thing. I don't know what to tell you. And the other thing you have to appreciate is that in the Batavia School District, So I'm told at Batavia High School, we've got 4 different towns with addresses on Batavia High School students. We got Aurora, we got North Aurora, we got Geneva, and we got Batavia.
I just remember you being in favor of watching this closely. If no one is asking for it and you were one of its biggest defenders, then I would defer to staff too.
I would agree with staff recommendation.
Anybody else?
And again, the ordinance does require a review every 3 years, so we'll be back in 2021.
So, if no one has any burning desire to change this, and I think our reaction to this is to leave it alone and bring it back in 3 years.
Right.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, item 14, resolution 18-86-R, authorizing extension of an employment agreement with John Dillon, Alderman Atek.
Yes, Gary Holm is asking that we extend John's contract with us, that he's been working with us part-time since he retired. He's been working over the last 2 years, and Gary, would you like to talk about this?
Thank you. I did provide a summary of the major projects that John has worked on and is continuing to work on. Approximately 5 to 10 hours every week he works for us, assisting, basically serving as lead on several of these projects to help free up myself and Kevin Maloney, who's our full-time building person. I just wanted to highlight one of the big differences in this agreement versus the agreement that is set to expire here at the end of July. The original agreement, John had access through the employee health care, and that's no more. He understands that. He understands that was meant to be a one-time offering. So this new agreement would be basically just an hourly wage, and that's it. And then there's a limit on his hours that he can work. That's really per IMRF, the retirement system. So there's really no other benefits being offered to him except payment for his time worked. We are recommending an extension of 1 year, and then we are going to review this again in about 6 months. Right now, the big project, obviously, that's underway is the Windows project. And the contractor is supposed to have the Windows project completed substantially by this fall, although there'll still be a fair amount of work to do next spring. We're going to do an exterior trench drain around the base of the building, and then various punch list items are going to have to be completed in the spring. So that we know of for sure. And then council will have to consider during the budget season the remodeling project. We do have $100,000 worth of architectural plans right now sitting on the shelf for a remodeling project that we are going to be recommending again come budget time. And if that project goes forward, then we probably will likely come back again with a recommendation to extend John's time so that he can serve as the lead on that. One last thing is 2 years ago when we brought this to you, this was meant as serving as a transition in order to get Kevin Maloney up to speed on some of the administrative items. I would say that if we didn't have these large projects undergoing right now, that Kevin could easily handle all the day-to-day. Kevin does right now. He handles all the day-to-day plumbing things that come up or HVAC or electrical things that come up. All the standard kind of contracts that happen on a day-to-day basis, Kevin's already handling all of that. The reason why we're recommending a continuation of John's agreement directly ties into these large projects, these large capital projects that are ongoing, which is really a good thing. I mean, we're investing back in these buildings that, frankly, in the big picture, the city didn't spend a lot of money on this place to begin with. We're really fortunate compared to a lot of other municipalities who've literally spent tens of millions of dollars on their facilities. So, for us to spend some money now, and we've been really very frugal, and so to have John and helping us with those capital projects has been really valuable.
Mike?
Well, I'm all for it. I think getting John for what his wage is a steal with his extensive knowledge of the city, just his knowledge of construction in general. I think we're getting a bargain.
One thing I know about John is John cares about the city, and he worked here throughout his whole career. He's not someone I have to worry about. So I mean, John shows up, I know he's doing something that's productive. So
absolutely.
The last couple of days, he's been taking windmills out of Francine Popik's backyard. So that's been his task.
Anything else? All right, would someone like to make a motion, Resolution 8, to approve, recommend to council approval of Resolution 18-86-R, authorizing extension of an employment agreement with John Dillon?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Consent?
I think so.
Okay. Item 15, Resolution 18-87-R, authorization for purchase of Microsoft licenses. Alderman Atek.
I'll turn this over to Howard.
Good evening, everyone. What we're trying to do is upgrade our Microsoft Office licenses. Right now, staff is working on version 2007. Support expired for that October 2017. Features are kind of frozen since there are no upgrades to it. So we would like to move everybody to Office 365. Part of moving everybody to this government version of Office 365 would include their advanced threat protection subscription, which would scan emails as it comes through. We have that right now with an outside company. This would bring it together with Microsoft. It is a Microsoft product. The other thing we would be doing is we would be moving our Exchange server out to the cloud. So we would be moving it off-premise into the Microsoft cloud. Would give us a lot more disk space. I believe they're going to give us, I think it is 100 gigabytes per user. Sorry, I had that note earlier. But it is a substantial increase in the size of storage that we're able to give each user here. It is 100 gig per user. So what this is this is a subscription. It is $55,880 per year over the next 3 years for a total of $167,640. It includes some additional applications. There is a big implementation coming, big conversion from our email server to the cloud. So there's a lot of work, but a lot of benefits to this. A lot of benefits for the employees. It will give them access to data out in the field, on iPads, on phones, things that they don't have now, things that will cost us a lot of additional resources to get to them out in the field from the IT staff. This comes with it. Yes.
From a hardware perspective, do you need to upgrade any hardware to be able to implement 365 effectively for those that are running on 2007?
I don't believe so. We're looking into whether or not we have to move to Windows 10, which we had planned to do anyways. Windows 7 support is going to, it's got another year and a half of life left to it. So we are looking at doing that, and we have some PCs already in-house that we haven't been able to deploy, but they may end up being deployed prior to this upgrade. So, but nothing that we intend to purchase. That's the question.
Elliot?
More a comment than I guess a question, but just hats off for keeping 2007 alive. In all seriousness, I mean that's truly a compliment for taking the resource that you had and keeping it alive and stretching it without having to do the upgrade to a newer version. Obviously, the purchase of for so long. That's truly impressive.
Well, it's doing everything that we need it to do right now. It's still support it. So.
And I can honestly say that it's one of the most reliable systems that I've ever worked on, and both from the Microsoft Office aspect of it, but also for the internet connectivity and the ability to download things. So Howard and his team do an excellent job.
Thank you.
Dan?
So that does impact city council email. We'll have additional storage and whatnot?
Yes,
I get
and
a warning about every
archiving.
4 days.
Archiving, additional storage, it will make FOIA requests easier.
I've just been
because
deleting
everybody will have that additional storage.
I'll be able to attach things to my city email?
Yeah, that'd be
You should be
outstanding.
able to now.
No, I can't.
Not through Chrome.
It might be the browser.
That's what you use.
Chrome.
That's a
So
user error.
right now, we are looking at purchasing a version for each council member. So that is included with this purchase. So you'll be able to load it on your tablets or your home PC if you'd like, and should give you some additional functionality. We are also looking at the possibility of revising how information gets to you guys for public meetings. We will have access to Microsoft's OneDrive, which is their cloud drive, and that should give people maybe a little more friendly access to data and to be able to share things.
Nice, yeah.
Yes.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great move. There's so much more that it's going to bring with potential of Skype and being able to communicate while on the field, show video
Teams.
while they're on the field, teams, all the collaboration. But it's something that should enhance other things that we're trying to do within the city and make everybody more efficient. And it's very good pricing. We have 100,000 people around the world. We can't beat that pricing. So.
The programs that come with this and the new features is pretty extensive, and I'm not going to lie, there is going to be a big learning curve for a lot of the staff members and for IT in administering the system.
And it was in the budget, you said that, right? We budgeted for this already.
Yes.
We did, yes.
Okay. Elliot, did you have something?
I was just going to ask on that same question, how much only because it's not in the memo, and I apologize, I didn't look it
What
up
the budget
beforehand,
is?
what we had budgeted
Well-
for this upgrade.
I purposely didn't put it in there because I didn't want to confuse some people. We budgeted to upgrade our Exchange server. We budgeted to upgrade Office. We also budgeted to upgrade our server licenses. So now we're combining the Exchange server, our email server, with the Office. But the 55,000 plus that we have that will be required for this year's subscription is under those two fees for the Exchange server and the Office product.
Dan?
Did you say Skype is included with the?
It is.
Yes.
So we've talked before about video conferencing. Is that something we would have capability of having? Instead of having a consultant fly in from Boston, they could actually just do their presentation from
Well,
Boston.
we do a lot of that now. A lot of vendors we deal with have those products, and they just send us.
But it would be
the-
easier for us
the
to
link.
implement here at a council.
We can do it now with other people, and it comes with SharePoint, Skype, the OneDrive, the basic other Office programs, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Publisher, Access. So it comes with all those programs. There's a number of other programs, such as Microsoft Planner, which is kind of a softer version of their project software. There's a presentation program called Microsoft Sway. There's some staff scheduling software. There's team software for collaboration, automation processes. So there's a number of new things coming down the pipe with this product, and it is going to give everybody a lot of additional functionality. Yes.
Yeah, I think the other thing is it adds, Microsoft keeps on adding things. So we can expect next year there'll be something else, and the year after that there'll be something else. So they're constantly adding to it. So and then the feature set is going to continue to grow with Office. So it's going to get better every year.
I believe every month or so they offer upgrades to the product. So it's not like we're getting 365 this year, next year it's going to be 366. It's 365 and the features just keep coming as long as you have a paid subscription, as opposed to what we had before where they'll upgrade it and give us service packs for a couple of years, and then it's kind of cut off except for security, vulnerability issues and so forth.
Elliot?
The other thing that I think is just, worthy of emphasizing here is that it's getting, Howard and at your time, as well as the rest of the department's time, back from having to manage all of these locally installed instances and KB patches going to them, for office. Like, it's a big support deal to actually hand it off and now let you get work on other things that are probably more critical.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the Exchange server is going to be a big headache that's going to go out into the cloud, and we won't have to manage that. Office, I have a feeling we're still going to have to manage the updates and bring them down and get them distributed. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. Mark was talking about that a little bit last night with me, and I guess we'll find out when we start moving forward.
Yeah, no, actually, when you log on to Office 365, the updates are there. So you just log on. I use it every day. I have every update. I never have to even think about it twice. So it's the only thing. I just laugh because SharePoint is like a bad D drive somewhere where you're like, people will go, oh, it's out on SharePoint, and unless it's administered well, it just goes somewhere. So yeah.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there is going to be some challenges for us to administer the program, and there are going to be so many options and different ways of doing the same thing with Teams and SharePoint, shared drives, and OneDrive. I mean, there's going to be a number of different ways of getting and giving access to data. So we're going to have to figure out.
Don't forget OneNote.
Yes. So we're going to have to figure out what are the best ways to do this and administer this so we don't have a big mess in our hands.
Okay. Anything else? All right, would someone like to make a motion to recommend to council the approval of Resolution 18-87-R authorizing purchase of Microsoft Office 365 licenses subscription?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Consent?
Yeah.
You want? Okay. All right, item 16, Resolution 18-88-R, approval of the MSA and SOW with liftoff. Alderman Atek.
All right, Howard?
Okay. So in bringing along this program, we definitely have some capable IT staff on hand, but we are pretty busy right now and researching how to implement this product, and finding the best way of doing things is definitely a challenge, and it's time consuming. What a lot of people are doing is they're bringing in a consultant to help them with this process, and we're asking for the same thing. We've talked to some of our colleagues from other communities, and they use this liftoff company. And we've spoken to them about their process, and the way that their process works is they work with us and advise us every step of the way, but we actually do the work. So our hands are on the keyboard. They're kind of looking over our shoulder remotely, and we have different sessions, sometimes 2 to 3 sessions a week as we progress through this implementation of both getting the Exchange server up, administering the system, learning how to do it, transferring information from one place to the other, and getting us up to speed before we allow the employees to have access. Part of this implementation with liftoff includes 5 seminars for the end users that will kind of give them a little tutorial on how to work with Office 365. And they have other topics too. We may ask them for Windows 10 because I know a lot of people are going to get Windows 10 and not really understand how to find things and where to put things. I have it at home. A lot of people have it at home. But having it here is a lot different. And I've been using it now for, I don't know, maybe about 3 months. And I'm still not used to it. I've been using Windows 7 for a long time, and there is a big difference, big change. So liftoff comes highly recommended from, as I said, my colleagues. They've done, and I didn't put an exact number, but I want to say that it was somewhere close to 500 implementations over the past few years. So they seem to have a really good system. You'll also see in my request that I did ask for a $5,000 contingency amount. And that's because Microsoft does give you a conversion program to move your email from your on-premise server to the cloud. But there's some things and some hiccups that could happen that it might not completely function. So this would cover that cost in case it doesn't work and we have to go out and buy another product. Yes.
Does the cost of using Liftoff fall within your budgeted number?
Yes.
Okay, and this is an absolute stinking no-brainer. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we add up the budget, the couple of budget items that I mentioned earlier, the office, between the consultant and the licenses, we're still under that budget number for the year.
Mark?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it any other way. I mean, you've got a lean staff, and I've seen and heard of companies trying to do this themselves, and they struggle. And I've been part of like the beginning of one starting to do it, and people were just struggling because they just couldn't figure it out. And you need somebody that can do it, and you need to do it quick, because if you drag it out, it gets even worse. So,
thank you.
I would do it this way.
Okay. Well, would someone like to make a motion to recommend to council the approval of Resolution 18-88-R authorizing a master service agreement and statement of work with Liftoff LLC in the amount of $17,000 with a contingency of $5,000 for conversion software if needed?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I think that can go on the consent agenda also.
Okay, item 17, resolution 18-90-R, waive formal bidding for the storage area network. Alderman Atek.
Howard.
So what we're trying to do here is purchase a storage system that we want to use to move SCADA programs that the utilities use, the supervisory control and data acquisition. So I believe a lot of people here are familiar with SCADA. It tells, let's say, Jeremy, when a water tower level is getting too low or a pump goes out. It will alert them, it will text them, it will tell them when a transformer breaks down somewhere on a pole. So the software is very important to keep the utilities up and functioning. And I know the departments and the divisions of Public Works depend on it quite a bit. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take three systems and combine them onto one hardware platform. And we think that this will be a better solution for them. We think it will be more efficient. It will be more reliable. It will offer us the ability to fail over in case of a disaster. And what we're trying to do is combine wastewater and water. They use the same software. Right now they're on different PCs rather than servers. This will bring that together. It will also put electric in this mix as well. They have a different SCADA system. They're looking to do an upgrade. It requires multiple servers. We'll be able to use this storage area network for all of that encompassing, all the encompassing programs that they use for SCADA. We will also be purchasing 2 servers to go with this. Each server works with a SAN, storage area network. So we'll put a SAN and a server on one side of town, the other SAN, the other server on the other side of town. They'll replicate data throughout the day and night, and we will have the ability to fail over in case, let's say, a tornado or a fire destroys one side of town. So it does add a lot more reliability to what they do.
Okay, are there any questions? Oh, so first of all, would someone like to recommend to council approval of Resolution 18-90-R to waive bidding on HPE Nimble Storage Area Network System?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Secondly, recommend to council approval of Resolution 18-91-R authorizing the purchase of HPE Nimble Storage Area Network System from Insight for the amount not to exceed $53,295.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I think that could also go on the consent
Okay,
agenda.
thanks, Howard.
Thank you.
Item 19, ordinance 18-52, declaring surplus property and donate the chip in. Alderman Atek.
All right, so staff has some excess property. It looks like 6 iPads, and they're recommending that we donate them to Chip in Batavia. They're no longer supported, and Chip in, I assume, is interested in having them?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were very happy to receive my email asking.
Oh, good. Great. And do you have anything else you'd like to say about this?
No, we're just happy to find somebody that can use them. The units are a little bit older, but they know it, and they said that it's still something that they could use. We're going to look at these a little more. It's possible they may get 5 out of the 6. We may have to keep 1 back, but I think they're happy to get any of them. And, it's nice that we can give the community something that typically would just end up in the electronic disposal.
Great. Any comments or questions? Would someone like to recommend to council approval of ordinance 18-52, declare surplus property and donate to Chip in Batavia?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. It's a feel-good thing. Maybe we should put it on the agenda.
Can I make one more comment? I
Yes.
will not be able to attend the next city council meeting. So Todd Davis will be here if questions come up about any of these items.
Okay.
Okay? Or you can email me during the week. I'll be here the end of this week, and then I'm going to be gone for a couple of weeks. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 20, project status. Laura?
So thanks everyone for participating in the strategic planning meeting that we had yesterday. I think that sufficient information was generated that I'll be able to put together a draft of the actual document that is the strategic plan within the next couple of weeks. And then we would bring that back to a committee of the whole meeting for both public comment as well as your approval to move it to the next stage, perhaps adopting our new strategic plan here in the beginning of August, probably is the time frame that I anticipate that happening.
Laura, can you address the action plan and how that will be developed?
Sure. So the items that were the objectives that relate to the larger goal were what we got down on paper yesterday. I think that working with the relevant departments within staff, we will develop specific action items and which groups within the organization will be responsible for those action items, as well as determining a rough budget for those items, so that as we go into our planning for our next budget cycle for 2019 and looking at, it's going to be a 3-year strategic plan, how we want to budget for those costs to be able to accomplish those tasks.
And if there's something that maybe, we were all kind of excited and it was a good 2-hour meeting, but maybe we have a little perspective and there's an area that maybe we thought we overlooked completely. Was there an opportunity to bring that back and discuss it?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because certainly we didn't have everybody there either, so they may wish to add to the information that we collected. Or as you have your public meeting about the next public meeting about it, there may be an idea that's suggested from the community that you'll want to change the plan for. I just wanted to commend the extraordinary efforts of our public safety personnel as well as Public Works for July 4th is hard to pull off once. And they managed to pull it off 2 days in a row, and they really did an excellent job both individually and the way that they coordinate with one another at the event for the efficient movement of people, keeping everybody safe at such a large community event, making sure that all of those street lamps go off at exactly the right time, and then they're brought up again so quickly to allow people to safely return home. So I just wanted to call them out for a job well done. In Public Works, there's a large effort by Streets Division to coordinate traffic control for the 4th of July event, as I just mentioned. Also, the Tri-City Sewer Lining Project is ready to bid. We don't have a large quantity of that to do this year, but next year we'll have a large program in combination with the Main Street project. The contractor has completed the first phase of the Morton Route 31 sewer separation crossing, and a new traffic pattern has been established this week. Water main work is nearing completion in support of the Ward 1 drainage improvements, so we're really glad with how both of those drainage projects have progressed this year. We're also working with our environmental consultant on the soils issue at 1 Washington Place, as well as trying to coordinate how the remediation efforts will be coordinated possibly with the developer. So in the next couple of weeks, I anticipate that we'll be coming back to City Council with a plan for you to review and approve. And then, let's see, got a couple other items. Oh, one big thing. I met with the school district today to talk about combining efforts on the slow down program. We discussed it in a prior committee of the whole meeting as a new strategy to try to get people to slow down as they drive through our neighborhoods. And the school district was very much in favor of working with us on this project. And so we're going to hope to get that launched prior to the start of this coming school year. Probably have plan to have signs available beginning of August. So we're putting together, we're having Chris Cudworth work with Sue Gillerlane at the school district to collaborate on a design for the signs and get cost estimates of that for you, and have a few places around town that people can pick up those signs if they wish and display them. We think having a 1 month campaign might be effective, and if this is successful, to do it at other times of year that are important to keep children safe, such as not only the beginning of the school year, but also in the springtime when more of the kids start to walk and or bike to school. And then also at the end of the school year when there's a lot more kids in our neighborhoods all day long. So hopefully that'll be a successful and continuing program for us. And lastly, at lunchtime, I met with Jamie Sam of Main Street. Because of the Windows project. Of course, we want to make sure that Cocktails in the Park can be as successful as possible, even though we've got this major construction project going on the east side of our building. And so we let her know that the gates from that construction are going to be open so that people attending Cocktails in the Park can go through there. And as well, we'll have the equipment will be moved out of that area. And so she's going to be working with Kevin Maloney on making sure that it's the best that it can possibly be. And that's all I have, unless somebody has a question for me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Laura.
Sure.
All right, next item is item 21, others. Does anybody have other? Gary? I'm sorry, Susan?
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to say, there was a lot of public comment about the canceling of the fireworks on the 4th of July. And having been on the fireworks committee for too many years to mention. Mark Davis waited as long as he possibly could to cancel the fireworks. And it was happening all around us. And the number of people that had to be evacuated was incredible, and how fast it had to happen. So, you know, people complained a lot about how it wasn't raining and everything else. But when it comes to lightning, the rules that he follows are they're kind of written in stone in terms of public safety. And so I just have to hand it to him, because he does not do these things lightly. And you normally will see him at any public event. And Mark runs our ESDA program, the Emergency Services group here in town. And he is always the person who you see running around at any event we have, making sure that if it's lightning or thundering or the radar is moving in a way that will affect Batavia, that he makes sure we're all safe. So I am so glad and very proud of him that he made that call, because he could have turned a blind eye to the weather. And as we saw in communities not too far away, people did get hit by lightning that night. So I just have to commend him for, you know, taking, while not the most popular action, the best action for the community. So just wanted to call out Mark for that.
Gary?
Next Tuesday night, Avant Energy will be here. Avant Energy is a consultant that we use for our electric utility, and they're going to come and talk about the services that they've been providing to us now for several years, just to give you kind of a face-to-face with them. Avant Energy also provides services to NIMPA, so they'll touch on that next Tuesday night as well, just to kind of introduce them, and really it's a touch base with staff. We meet with them on a regular basis around the NIMPA side, but it's been now a couple of years since in the city of Batavia side, so they're going to come and sit down with us. That's next Tuesday. I'll give one last pitch for 2 Tuesdays from now, and that is the Prairie State Tour on Monday, Tuesday, the 23rd, 24th. So if anyone is still interested, let me know. That includes a mine tour and a power plant tour down at the campus down there. And then probably in March, although it could be in late February, NIMPA will be hosting an evening for all 3 communities to get together. Again, we'll have a presentation by Avant that evening, but they won't be the star of the show. The star of the show will be Don Gaston, who's Prairie State's CEO. He'll come up and make a presentation for the 3 communities. And so basically that evening we'll be talking about the project and giving councils an update. So that will be about the first quarter of 2019.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, we'll go on then to item 22, which is executive session for the purpose of personnel. I do need a motion for that.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Salvati, second by, who did it, Malay or? Sure. That's it. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. There won't be any action coming out of that.